Welcome to Awakenings in Real Life, where we tell inspiring stories of transformation, meaning, and hope. While we typically think of an awakening as a getting up or something religious or spiritual in nature, it's also a recognition, realization, or awareness of something. We're going to share stories of people triumphing over loss, illness, addiction, trauma, bullying, near-death experience, and more. Please enjoy. This is Dan Cohen, and welcome to Awakenings in Real Life. And today our guest is Shirley Buck, who's joined us in the studio today. I really appreciate you coming to the studio.
Thank you. I really am glad to be here.
And you came from?
Chicago.
Oh, that's fabulous. You really came for the podcast only, I understand.
Well, I like New York as well.
Okay.
My daughter and grandchildren have tagged along, so we're having fun.
That's fabulous. All right, let me introduce the audience to you. So Shirley Buck is a trauma survivor, mindset transformation coach, Reiki Master, and international best-selling author of Sweet Freedom Whispered in My Ear, with over 15 years of experience in holistic healing. Shirley combines energy work, spiritual coaching, and deep body work to help others release old stories and reclaim their power. She is the founder of Red Leaf Alternative Healing and is passionate about showing others what it means to rise from the inside out. When she's not working with clients, Shirley loves traveling. She's been to 15 countries, spending time with her grandchildren, like on this trip, and sharing raw, inspiring stories about healing, faith, and freedom. And for those of you that are watching on YouTube or Spotify, we did not plan to match our outfits today. Am I right? But we're both in green.
Yes. Yes, that's true. I did not get an email stating to wear green. That's true.
Don't tell anybody if I did. Anyway, the first question I usually ask our guests is, what was your awakening in real life?
Well, as you know, my childhood was filled with trauma and abuse, and my awakening didn't come until I was 23 years old. Okay.
And what happened at that time?
After a long time of like abuse, trauma, addictions, eating disorders, I had just kept going in survival mode. And then I had met my fiance, who is my children's father, and I was in a healthy relationship. I was safe for the first time in my life, and that's when I had a nervous breakdown.
Oh, boy.
And I'm pretty sure that happened because I was finally in a safe place. I slowed down enough for everything to surface, and I was in a safe place, I guess, to deal with it. Although it was too much at once, and it was the scariest time of my life, really.
Yeah. So let's back up a little, if we can, if you're comfortable talking about the trauma you've gone through. I know you've had experiences with both your parents, right? You want to give a little background as to your parents and what you went through?
Yeah, my parents were both deaf. So that in itself is a challenge to children of deaf parents, especially hearing children, because we become their ears and their voice at a very young age. In fact, I was sitting in a lawyer's office during their divorce period as the interpreter at 5 years old. It's just expected of you. Like, I didn't have toys to play with, and I did have a show and tell, which I loved, and brought music into my life, which, you know. But they were divorced when I was 5, and
that's a big burden to bear as a 5-year-old, to speak for your parents, especially in a lawyer's office. Am I right?
Yeah. I don't know that it seemed like a burden to me because it was so normal to me to just be that interpreter. I didn't mind it. I just took on a role of being a caregiver at a very young age, and it kind of followed me into life, and sometimes became a problem when I was establishing friendships and relationships that were intimate or anything like that, because I always played that caregiver role, and I kind of took on people who needed a caregiver for a very long time until I learned
You were a
what I was
rescuer.
doing. Yeah, until I learned what I was doing, right.
So what happened? I know you had experiences with your mom and stepfather, right? Do you want
Right.
to go into some of those?
She had met my stepdad, and they were married. I think I was like around 7, and by the time I was 8, he had talked her into selling our home that my father had left for us, and he moved us into a pretty bad apartment, roach-infested apartment, and took off with all our money, but not before he had molested me as well. So the abuse started there, and she also became an alcoholic, and she became an abusive alcoholic, probably because she was so angry at everything that had happened. Before she met him, she never drank, smoked, swore. She was just a very timid, shy person. She was a deaf person who was brought up in an insecure setting. Like, she was
he was
hidden.
hearing?
My dad. Oh,
the
he was
stepfather?
hard of hearing.
Hard of
so
hearing.
he could hear with hearing aids. He knew sign language, but my mother was a child that was hidden in the bedroom when company came over because they were embarrassed she was deaf, and she was a very insecure person. My father taught her how to drive, taught her sign language. You know, he. I think he tried really hard to bring her out of her shell.
Did she have any idea of what was going on with your stepfather at all?
I told her, she didn't want to hear it, and I told my father, and my father had threatened him. My father actually was just learning how to walk again. He was still on crutches because he had been in a motorcycle accident that broke 42 bones in his body, and he was in traction for 9 months. But anyway, he came on crutches and threatened him that he should never touch me again, and shortly after that was when he left with everything.
Wow. And what were you feeling? And your mother was an alcoholic, you said, at this time, and you must have felt that she wasn't protecting you, or
No, she was actually quite abusive. When she was drunk, she would have these angry outbursts and beat me. A lot of times she would beat me until either my lip would start bleeding or something, or I would go into these like kind of shaking fits where my jaw would get kind of locked. It's kind of like a locked jaw from being overstressed. Then she would get scared and take me to a hospital, and they would like wrap me in these warm blankets, but they never did anything about child abuse back then. It was, and I don't really think I said anything about child abuse. I don't know if I did or anything. I was pretty young.
Yeah, you don't know how to articulate it. This is what you knew in the house you were growing up with, and maybe they couldn't recognize it, or maybe they should have inquired further.
Right.
But you had no place to hide between your mother and your stepfather.
Right. And my dad would come get me on some weekends and something. He wasn't abusive, but every time he was in a relationship, I wouldn't see him for months on end, or, you know, he didn't. I mean, I think he was protective and he loved me. He just, again, being deaf is, especially back in those days, they were more of the child than you were. You took care of them. I mean, he worked. He had a good job. He was probably the only deaf person on the city of Chicago payroll, and
so the disability is greater than not hearing.
Oh yeah. It's a whole different understanding. I think that's why they've developed CODA. I've never been a part of CODA, but I know of it, and it's Children of Deaf Adults.
Oh.
They have a support group for people who grew up
Makes
with
sense.
parents that were deaf.
Now, did you go to live with your father at some point?
Not until my mother passed when I was 13. My mother, you know, when she was in her drinking fit, she'd be gone for days on end. And when she was sober, like in the morning when she'd wake up and I'd tell her what happened, she would cry and say, you know, why don't you go live with your aunt in California or your dad? Or, she would be sorry. She'd feel bad. She just couldn't control it. And I went to my dad's house for the weekend when I was 13 years old, and I came home and I rang the doorbell to come in, and the lights would go on for the doorbell. And my mother answered the door, and she looked down the hallway. We were on the first floor, and she said, "Shirley's not home." And I said, "I am, Shirley." And so she let me in. She said, "Oh." And I had noticed she had lost weight. She seemed confused. I was afraid to go to sleep that night. I actually went to sleep with a cross under my pillow because I sensed something was really wrong. And when I woke up at 2 a.m. and went looking for her, I found her sitting by the window looking outside, and she turned to me. She walked up to me and hugged me really tight and said, "I'm sorry," but she held me so tight I tried to get away, and that's when she started beating me, and she actually committed suicide. She tried to take my life that night as well.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So she beat you, tried to take your life, and wow.
Yeah, she took her life in a very violent way. She stabbed herself in the stomach and throat.
You were there?
Yeah, I was trying to get out. The people downstairs were trying to break in the door because they heard us screaming and everything. And I finally got to the door, fell down the stairs, and they took me in, called the police, and yeah.
How do you handle that as a 13-year-old? I mean, losing a parent is tough, but then you have an abusive parent who try to hurt you at the same.
There was a lot of mixed emotions, especially that night. I was terrified. The police actually came and told me to go upstairs with them, and I said, "I'm not going up there. She is very strong. She is violent." And they actually left and said, "Well, we can't go up there if you don't come with us." And I'm 13. So we had to wait for my dad to come out. And then we recalled the police, and then my dad went up there with them. My dad came down and told me she was gone. Believe it or not, it was just another thing I had to handle. Like, I had to go to the morgue with my dad and identify the body. And I think there was some kind of, I remember getting like $800 to $1,000 or something, some kind of insurance thing she had. So I took that money because she didn't have a headstone. My dad paid for her burial, but not a headstone. So I took that money and made sure had my dad take me to, get her a headstone. And I was taking care of things,
You dealt with a lot as a child. That's a lot of trauma. So at that point, was it better when you went to live with your father and your stepmother?
No. My stepmom did not bargain for me moving in. They had my sister was 7 years old then, and they had just gotten married 6 months prior. They had broken up while she was pregnant with my sister, but they had just gotten back together and remarried, and they got married. So it was a new marriage, and she wasn't bargaining, on me coming to live there. So she didn't want me, we'd sit down at the table, and my dad set a plate down for me, and she would take the plate and throw it with the food on it and just storm into the bedroom, lock the door. And they used to fight about it, and I'd be like, "Dad, don't worry about it. I'm out of here." So I just started hanging out with the wrong crowd because they're the ones that's out late at night. And,
so what happened?
I started partying and hanging out late. My little sister would actually leave my bedroom window open so I could sneak in and out. She'd leave taffy apples out there for me and things like that, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. But I got a job at 13 years old with the neighborhood grocer, and he would pay me $10 a day, and I would take that money and go out to eat at fast food and then save the change and do my laundry at the end of the week because she wouldn't let me do my laundry there either. But unfortunately, he molested me for 2 years as well, from the age of 13 to 15.
I mean, I don't mean to downplay anything, but you couldn't get a break. You were, I don't know if luck or unlucky, but you never had anybody treat you right, especially when you have a parental figure who's supposed to love and protect you.
Right. Yeah, that was a problem. Again, it was kind of normal to me because I was just the one taking care of things all the time.
Well, who was taking care of you?
Yeah, at that time I didn't look at it that way. And now I know that obviously since I've had children and grandchildren, I'm like, wow, my mind's blown because I'm a fierce protector of my children and grandchildren, and they always came first to me. So I as I got older, I realized how wrong it was.
Sure.
But yeah, I guess not catching a break is one way to put it. Yeah.
Not to downplay it, but
No,
you went through a terrible, terrible experience. And at 15, what happened at 15?
Well, I was still working at the grocery store, but there was a man who would come in there. He was like 25 years old, and he had been coming in there for months, playing video games, chatting with me, had gotten close as far as us talking about personal things. And he was like, oh, I'd like to take care of you. I'm falling in love with you, and 25 and 15. I was still pretty naive, believe it or not, even after everything I'd been through at to that age. I believed him, and I started to fall for him. And so I left the grocery store and went to go live with him. He told me he couldn't have children. He told me he was sterile. I had nothing to worry about, as he was talking me into being intimate for the first time that way. And 4 months later, I was pregnant. So I was 15, pregnant, homeless. Yeah. I was scared. Yeah.
And what happened with that relationship? Did it last?
Well, once I was pregnant, he was abusive as well. And once I was pregnant, I became very protective and said, I might go through this, but my child will never go through that.
You.
So my grandmother let me move in with her. She lived in a Pullman area, so I moved in with her. And
your grandmother treated you right?
My grandmother was very good to me, yes.
That's great.
She was also 75 years old at the time. Of course, I couldn't expect her to raise a child and to take care of me the rest of her life or anything. But yeah, she had set some really positive foundations for me because she was loving and caring. Yeah, she taught me a lot.
So at least you had a positive influence there.
I did, and I didn't even get to know her till my mother died. And she told me that my mother would not allow me to have anything to do with her, that she was kind of jealous of my father's family. She wanted me to stay away from them. So unfortunately, I didn't know her growing up until my mother died.
Well, the real power to your story is how you overcame all the trauma in your life. You said you had this experience at 23, which is really the awakening. Take us from there to what you did to overcome all this, to how you became the person that you are today, and how you're now taking those lessons learned to help others, because it's quite a remarkable story.
Well, when I was 23, I had the breakdown, and I really thought I wasn't going to come back from that.
Okay.
I even told my fiance at the time, I don't even know what you're still doing here. If I were you, I would run. I'm not going to be okay. I'm never going to be okay. In fact, I thought that I was going to probably do what my mother did at some point, because I didn't think that I could survive feeling like that. I thought that I was going to go crazy. I was terrified.
Sure.
And we talked about me possibly seeing a therapist. And I said, I don't want to speak to anyone who's never been through things, who've learned things from a book, learned how to get over things from a book. And I said, I never been to a therapist, and I didn't want to go that route. I'm not saying it's wrong for everybody, but for me, it wasn't the way I wanted to go. And I honestly feel like that's what saved me.
not going through traditional methods of therapy saved you.
Yes.
Elaborate on that.
Well, because I learned how to think, change my mindset, and I believe that going through therapy, they have you focus on the problem, talk
Okay.
about the problem, focus on the whys, you feel a certain way. And it's focusing on the problem so much, and then people become depressed because they're focusing on the problem so much, and then they give you meds to mask that depression, and you're not really, you're coping, you're not healing, in my opinion. And like,
Right.
again, this is not true for everybody, but for me. And I wanted to heal. I didn't want to mask or cope. I wanted to heal. In fact, sometimes people are like, oh, you cope very well. I said, no, I'm not coping. I'm happy. I'm healthy. I feel great.
That's great.
And that's the difference between, surviving or actually overcoming.
Interesting. You wanted to do more than you survived your whole life.
Yeah.
You survived.
Yeah, I was tired of surviving.
You wanted to thrive,
live.
not survive. You wanted to thrive.
Yes.
So what happened then? So you didn't go through traditional therapy,
Right.
but you had this sort of awakening. And what were your fiance at the time you're still with? Ted?
No, he and I were divorced when the kids were 2
Okay.
and 4, but we're still very good friends. We travel together with the kids and grandkids, and I'm still very grateful for him being a part of my healing, for being there for me to lean on.
That's great.
It's, I don't know that I could have done it without him.
Well, that's good. It's good if you can go through a divorce with children and maintain that. Not a lot of people can, but if you can do it, it's healthier for the children, and it's I'm sure it was healthier for you
I don't
too.
really carry around hate or anger or I don't know if I was born that way or I just don't, and I'm so grateful I don't, because that could have been a downfall for sure.
Sure.
Of me.
So take us through, because you do a lot of things now and you help a lot of people. How did that develop? Go through that process a little bit.
Okay,
with
so
us.
I first started with a book, and I don't even know how I came across this book, but I will tell you, if you are trying to heal and take those first steps, the universe will start bringing you tools, and you'll receive things that you need. And somehow this book came across
It was a book
my
you
path.
read.
Yeah, it was the Feel Good Handbook.
The Feel Good Handbook.
And I started to read this book, and it talked about a lot of different people going through a lot of different experiences as a result of trauma or abuse. Some people were afraid to leave their home because they thought they would be framed for a murder. Some people couldn't drive more than 3 blocks without getting out of their car and checking the grill to make sure they didn't hit somebody. So it started to explain a lot of different outcomes, mental challenges, and I didn't feel so alone. So that was the first step. I was like, okay, so it's normal for me to feel this way. Once you can kind of feel normal when you feel so abnormal, that's a great step forward, because I'm like, okay, this is normal, or a normal reaction to things I've been through. So now I've got that under my belt. So now I'm like, how do I heal from here?
It seems so simple, right? But when you to know that all these feelings you have, you're normal, because you've gone through all this trauma. Maybe the expression is, did I contribute to it? Am I a part of it? And what am I feeling? But just to learn that these feelings are normal what you're saying is a great base or starting point.
Yes, absolutely. And I have a 3-month course, and I tell people it's a simple course. It's not easy, but it is simple. So when you said simple, that was a perfect word.
Okay.
Because the process really is simple, but it's not easy because it's something you have to do consistently.
Right.
So I wanted to feel good. I wanted to be happy. I guess that's why when I was a child, I was always looking for a way to be happy. And I guess that's why I got into drugs and alcohol. And I was always looking for a way, to get happy.
Right.
So I started learning happiness is a choice. And I know people, it kind of became such a cliche. Change your mind, change your life. Happiness is a choice. And people sometimes, especially when you're going through hard times, you're like, yeah, right, whatever. You don't want to hear that crap, right?
Right.
But I'm here to tell you it's true. You do choose happiness. You do choose what you think about. I mean, a lot of us are on autopilot, right? We just go through, get up in the morning, go to work, come home, eat, watch TV, go to sleep. We get in this autopilot.
Right.
We don't even know what we're thinking about. So I teach people to be aware of your emotional scale. And then when you start to pay attention to how you feel, if you're not feeling so good, you're not thinking good. Right?
True.
So mind, body, and soul really is a true connection. So if you're not thinking good, you're not feeling good. Then you start to become aware of your thoughts. Once you become aware of your thoughts, you can pick and choose what you want to think about. Again, it's a whole process. Once you practice it, you learn it, you practice it, it becomes second nature. Once you start thinking about something that makes you feel bad, after you've done it for a long time, you're like, oh, I don't want to go there.
Right.
Why am I choosing to think about that when I can think about this? So little examples I can give you is after COVID, I was driving back into the city to see clients, and there was just garbage all over the highway. And one of the things about Chicago that I take pride in is it's such a clean city, such a clean city. It's amazing for how big it is.
Right.
And there was garbage everywhere. And at my drive into work, I was like, ugh. Frustrated. I'm like one of those people that'll call 311. There's garbage here. Like, pick it up. So anyway, I started to realize I didn't feel good every time I was driving to work. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. What am I thinking about? I'm focusing on this garbage. Why am I focusing on? I can't go out and clean the city of Chicago, right? It's out of my hands. There's nothing I can do. I can do my small part and then move on. So instead of focusing on the garbage, I started looking up at the beautiful skyline. I started to look at the beauty instead of the garbage. And that's kind of what you have to do. You got to look at all the beauty. Because if you want to look for bad things in life, they're all over the place. But if you want to look for the good things in life, they're all over the place too. It's your choice.
And
right?
that's what you mean by mindset transformation. Transform how you're thinking. Mm-hmm. And you help people to do that.
I do.
So it's interesting to me, you're not a therapist per se,
no,
right?
Right.
But therapy wasn't for you, who could help people. But in a sense, you're not a therapist, but you are helping people.
Mindset transformation coach.
Right? That's a little ironic, I guess.
Yeah, I just help people in a different way than being a therapist. I didn't learn out of a book. I learned from experience. I was there. So when people tell me, I felt this way, I felt damaged, I felt hurt, I felt betrayed, I get it. I understand it because I've been there too.
Right. So it's a different approach.
And I can truly feel what they've been through and give them a way out.
So you consider it holistic or alternative type?
Alternative, yes.
Thinking?
Holistic, yes, because I also do energy work. I do lymphatic massage. I do body work. I do energy work, and I do mindset.
Because the mind and the body
soul
are combined.
Yes.
Right, you do all of the above.
Right.
Not just working on the mind. If the
Right.
body feels good, it's like people who work out and they feel better afterwards. And what is a Reiki Master?
Reiki? Reiki Master, I do energy work. So Reiki is something that's more experienced and explained, but it's energy shifts. So I clear out negative energy. About 6-7 years ago, started getting messages while I do energy work, which is really amazing. I don't say I'm a psychic or anything like that, but I am intuitive, and I do get messages where people are like, oh my God, I need it. There was honestly one time recently smelled salami the whole time I was doing the Reiki session. And then I just got the feeling that she was really close to her dad. So it was kind of those things. And I said, "Are you close to your dad?" And she said, "Yeah, he just passed." And she started to tear up. I said, "Did he like salami?" And she's like, "He loves salami. We used to even drive into Wisconsin to get salami and sausages." And how did you know that? I said, I didn't. I just smelled salami and I felt like you were close to your dad. So it wasn't like I was getting a complete message that
but
she
But
lost.
it was intuition.
Yeah,
Your
right.
intuitive
And it meant a
thought.
lot to her. So, I mean, Reiki is just clearing energy, shifting energy, replacing it with good energy. You know, I'm just a conduit. I don't actually do it. I feel like the spirits and guides work through me.
So tell me about your book. The title again is
Sweet Freedom Whispered in My Ear.
And when did you write the book?
It released in October of 23.
Okay.
I was told for years and years to write a book, and I just never felt like it was the right time. And then I had one client said, "You know, you should write a book." And I said, "You know what? I think you're right." And I went home and I sat down and I wrote the book. But I feel like it had to be at that time in my life because I was in my 50s. I was very secure with who I am, not was. And having my grandchildren, because I don't live that life. I don't hang out back there. I don't allow my mind to hang out back there. So I had to go back there to write it, you know.
You had to revisit it.
Right. And my grandchildren kept me here when I had to go back there because they have me playing all the time. I'm playing, I'm having fun, I'm laughing.
Right.
And that's very important if you're revisiting a bad part of your life. And one important thing I usually like to get across is something I said earlier. The past doesn't exist. And people will argue, "Oh, yeah, I went through that and that. I don't want to discredit that."
People have different philosophies about
Right.
that.
I say the past does not exist unless you give it thought.
Okay.
Okay? If you don't
Interesting.
give it thought, it's not there. Those people that abuse me and hurt me, they're not there. Why would I want to give them that power still to hurt me?
Makes sense.
And so there are good things in my past. Obviously, everybody has good and bad.
Right.
Even when I was going through terrible times, there were good times. I can choose to remember those. I don't have to think about all the terrible things that happened to me. All that does is rob me of my joy now. Why would I want to do that? So my thing is I don't want to discredit anyone's past or what they've been through because it usually makes who we are.
Other people feel you have to bring the past into the present. There's different philosophies. Yours works for you and works for the people you help.
Right.
So let me ask a question. Who's whispering the freedom in your ear?
Sweet freedom whispered in my ear. Okay. John Lennon wrote the song, "Someone Saved My Life Tonight." That song saved my life. So
Okay.
that song actually describes the whole night my mom that died, the whole night she took her life. Things like, you almost had me hooked and altar bound, hooked and tied, altar bound, hypnotized, sweet freedom whispered in my ear. She almost had me at the altar, but not as a wedding, but as in a coffin. I would have walked head on to the deep end of the river, clinging to your stocks and bonds, paying your HP demands forever. But they're coming in the morning with a truck to take me home. My dad came to take me home. The people in the basement, rolling around the basement floor, the people in the basement saved me. Like, that whole song described the night my mom died.
Wow.
And it was like, sweet freedom whispered in my ear, "You're a butterfly, and butterflies are free to fly." You know, so fly
Wow.
away.
Very profound.
So, yes, I actually sent a copy to Elton John and Bernie Taupin, who wrote the song. Bernie, yeah. And they never got back to me, but I hope they got
You
the
tried.
book. I hope they got the message.
You never know.
You never know.
You never know.
Yeah. Elton?
Elton, if you're following
Elton.
the podcast, you know that song had special meaning
Right.
for Shirley over here.
Exactly.
So get in touch,
Yeah.
Elton.
Talk to you soon, Elton.
Exactly. So look into the camera, and what message do you want to convey, and tell us how people can reach you, what you're doing now, anything you want to share so people get in touch with you, because I think your story is remarkable from where you
Thank
were and where you're at. Not only how far you've come in your life, but you've now taken tools to help others. And that's really terrific.
Thank you.
Go ahead, tell the audience.
Okay. Well, I'd like to think that everything I've been through is not in vain. So I want to take what I've learned and what I've been through and what I've overcome to help others. What I do want to say is no matter what you've been through, you can find happiness, you can find peace. I'm here to tell you I've found it, even though I've been through severe abuse and trauma. You can change your life. What I do, I have a 3-month course. And during that 3-month course, the course is a simple course. It gives you daily activities, weekly lessons with daily activities. And during the 3-month course, once a week, I hop on a Zoom call with my clients to talk about the course. And sometimes it has nothing to do with the course. It's just us talking about what challenges they have been through and or are facing. So you can reach me just by going to shirleybuck.com. On there is a link. You could set up a free call with me. And you can grab my book. My book has tons of great tips in there as well. You can grab that on Amazon, and I'm told that it's even at Target.com. I don't know. Yeah. I haven't checked, but somebody said it is. So, yeah, you should be able to find me pretty easily.
That's great. Well, I really appreciate you coming to the studio today, and
Thank
I know.
you for having me.
And between Shirley and I, she's going to have a great steak dinner at Peter Luger's Steak.
I am.
Tonight, and she's going to report back to me.
And
next time we do a podcast, we have to dress differently.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know. I'll have to email you.
Okay.
What I'm going to wear.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for listening or watching this episode. If you enjoyed our guest, please go to our website, awakeningsinreallife.com, where our guest shares a story different than their awakening. It's really very interesting. We also have bonus episodes where another individual tells their awakening story. Please also check out my book, Awakenings in Real Life, where I tell the story of my dad's awakening from his dementia and the message he sends that he still lives and appreciates life. It's available on Amazon and also tells other family stories. If you know of someone who wants to be a guest on the show and has an awakening, please email me at info@awakeningsinreallife.com. We're also available on social media. Please tune in to our next episode where we share another remarkable awakening story. Finally, I want to thank Jay Belsky of Flawed Media of Rockville Center, New York, who did such a great job recording this episode.